I found the text message at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Sarah was in the shower, humming something I didn't recognize. Our bedroom smelled like her expensive perfume, the kind that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Her phone sat on the nightstand, screen glowing with a notification. I wasn't the snooping type. Never had been in our 7 years together. But something about that particular buzz made my hand move before my brain could stop it. Tomorrow night. Same place. Can't stop thinking about you. No name, just a number I didn't recognize. The water shut off. I placed the phone exactly where it had been, screen down, and pretended to read the book on my lap. My hands weren't shaking yet. That would come later. Sarah emerged in a cloud of steam, wrapped in the white robe I'd bought her last Christmas. She looked beautiful. She always looked beautiful. High cheekbones, dark hair falling wet against her shoulders, green eyes that could make you forget your own name. "You're still up?" she asked, toweling her hair. "Couldn't sleep." My voice sounded normal. I was good at normal. She climbed into bed beside me, smelling like jasmine and lies. I turned a page without reading it. She picked up her phone, thumb moving across the screen. I watched from the corner of my eye as she deleted something, her expression never changing. "Long day?" I asked. Exhausting. Sarah was a corporate attorney at Henshaw & Associates, pulling in 3 times my salary as a high school history teacher. Our apartment reflected that disparity, her taste, her money, her rules. I'd stopped arguing about the minimalist furniture and abstract art years ago. "Need to talk about it?" "Not really." She set the phone down, turned off her lamp. "Night, David." "Night." I lay awake until 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself I'd misread the message, that it was a wrong number, that my wife of 7 years wouldn't do this to me. By sunrise, I knew better. The next morning, I went through the motions. Made coffee, toasted bread. Sarah came out in her charcoal suit, the one that made her look like she owned the world. Maybe she did. She certainly seemed to think so. "You look tired," she said, pouring coffee into her travel mug. "Didn't sleep well." "You should take something for that, melatonin or whatever." She checked her phone, frowned, typed something quickly. "I'll be late tonight, probably 9 or 10. "The merger?" "Yeah, mountains of paperwork." She kissed my cheek absently, already mentally out the door. "Don't wait up." I watched her leave, briefcase in one hand, phone in the other, stepping into the elevator like she was stepping onto a stage. The doors closed. I stood there in our expensive apartment with its marble countertops and floor-to-ceiling windows, feeling like an actor who'd forgotten his lines. Wednesday was worse. I couldn't concentrate at school. My students noticed. Tommy Patterson asked if I was okay during third period American history. I told him I was fine, then spent 10 minutes explaining the wrong battle of the Civil War before a girl in the front row politely corrected me. I went home early, claiming a headache. Sarah wouldn't be back until late anyway. She'd said so that morning. Another late night. More paperwork. More lies. I sat in our living room and thought about what I knew. A cryptic text message. Late nights that had become more frequent over the past few months. The way Sarah had become protective of her phone. The new lingerie I'd found in her drawer last week. Black lace, expensive, tags still attached. She hadn't worn it for me. Little things, individually meaningless. Together they painted a picture I didn't want to see. But I was a history teacher. I knew how to research, how to find evidence, how to piece together narratives from fragments. So I started looking. Sarah's laptop sat on the desk in our home office. She usually took it to work, but today she'd forgotten it. Or maybe she'd left it intentionally, confident I wouldn't snoop. She was wrong. The laptop wasn't password protected for home use. She trusted me that much at least. I opened it and started going through her files, her browser history, her email. Nothing obvious at first. Work documents, client files, boring legal correspondence. Then I checked her personal email, the account she used for shopping and social media. She'd been careful to delete most messages, but she'd missed a few. Hotel confirmation emails, dinner reservations for 2 at expensive restaurants I'd never heard of. A receipt from a jewelry store for a men's watch that cost $3,000. I'd never received a $3,000 watch. The dates lined up with her late work nights, every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 4 months. I sat back in the desk chair, the evidence spread across the screen like a prosecution's case file. Part of me wanted to slam the laptop shut and pretend I'd never looked. The other part, the part that was already planning, already calculating, wanted more. I took screenshots of everything, emailed them to a new account I created on my phone, deleted the sent messages from her laptop, covered my tracks. Then I closed the computer and went to make dinner, just like always. Sarah came home at 10:15 p.m. looking tired and rumpled. Her lipstick was gone. Her hair was slightly messed. She'd showered. I could smell hotel soap, different from what we had at home. "Sorry I'm so late," she said, dropping her briefcase by the door. "The merger is absolutely insane right now." "It's fine. I saved you some pasta." "You're the best." She kissed my forehead, and I smelled cologne on her neck. Men's cologne, not mine. I heated up her dinner while she changed into sweatpants and a t-shirt. We ate together at the kitchen island, talking about nothing important. She complained about a difficult client. I told her about my student who'd mixed up the Battle of Gettysburg with the Battle of Bull Run. Normal, domestic, comfortable, completely fake. After dinner, Sarah fell asleep on the couch, watching some legal drama. I covered her with a blanket and went to the bedroom. I lay there in the dark, listening to her breathe in the other room, and felt something cold and hard forming in my chest. Not quite anger yet. Something more calculated, more patient. I'd spent years teaching teenagers about warfare and strategy, about how battles were won not through rage, but through planning, how the best generals were the ones who could stay calm while their enemies panicked. I could be calm, I could plan, and when the time came, I could execute. Thursday morning, I called in sick again. The school secretary sounded concerned. I never called in sick. I told her I had the flu, promised I'd be back Monday, and hung up before she could ask more questions. Sarah had already left for work. I had the apartment to myself. I spent an hour researching private investigators online. Most of them looked like they operated out of strip mall offices, promising discreet surveillance for catching cheating spouses. The websites were terrible, Comic Sans fonts and stock photos of people peering through binoculars. Then I found Bill Kowalski. His website was simple, professional, no stock photos, just a headshot of a middle-aged guy with a crooked nose and tired eyes, and a list of services: background checks, surveillance, asset investigation, corporate intelligence. The address was in the warehouse district above a Polish deli. I called the number. He answered on the second ring. Kowalski Investigations. "Hi, I need to hire someone for surveillance. Come by the office, 2 o'clock. Can we talk on the phone first?" "No." He hung up. I sat there holding my phone, surprised. Then I laughed. First time I'd laughed in 2 days. At 1:45 p.m., I parked on a street that smelled like kielbasa and industrial cleaner. Bill's office was up a narrow staircase marked only with a number. I knocked. "It's open." The office was small and cluttered. File cabinets lined one wall. A desk covered in papers dominated the center. Bill sat behind it, typing on a computer that looked older than my students. "You the 2 o'clock?" he asked without looking up. "Yeah, David Harmon." "Sit." I sat in a cracked leather chair facing his desk. Bill finished typing, then finally looked at me. His eyes were sharp despite the tired face, evaluating, measuring. "Infidelity case?" he asked. "Maybe." It's always infidelity or insurance fraud. You wouldn't be here if you thought it was maybe. He pulled out a yellow legal pad. How long you been married? 7 years. Kids? No. That makes it simpler. What do you know so far? I told him about the text message, the late nights, the hotel confirmations and restaurant reservations, the cologne that wasn't mine. I didn't tell him about the cold thing forming in my chest or the plans starting to take shape. Bill wrote it all down in scratchy handwriting. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. You want me to confirm what you already know? That's what this is. I want evidence. For divorce? For whatever I decide to do with it. Something flickered in his expression. Understanding, maybe. Or recognition. Like he'd seen this before, knew how it ended. My rate is $200 an hour plus expenses. You're looking at minimum 40 hours of surveillance to establish a pattern. That's $8,000 plus whatever else comes up. I'd expected it to be expensive, still hurt to hear the number. Okay. You got that kind of money laying around? I'll get it. From where? You said your wife's the one with money. I've been saving, separate account. Bill nodded slowly. Smart. When did you open it? 6 months ago. So you've suspected for a while. I didn't answer, didn't need to. Here's what's going to happen, Bill said. I'm going to follow your wife. I'm going to document everything. Where she goes, who she meets, how long she stays. I'm going to get photos and video. And when I'm done, you're going to have evidence that will hold up in court or anywhere else you need it. How long? Give me 2 weeks, maybe less if she's sloppy. She's not sloppy. Everyone's sloppy when they think they're not getting caught. He pulled out a contract. I need a retainer, $4,000, cash or check. I'd opened that separate account 6 months ago, like he said, started moving money slowly, 50 here, 100 there, skimmed from my paychecks before the deposit hit our joint account. Sarah never noticed. Why would she? She made so much more than me that my salary was basically a rounding error in our finances. But I'd been patient, careful, paranoid maybe. And now I had $12,000 saved in an account she didn't know existed. I wrote the check. One more thing, Bill said as I stood to leave. Don't change your behavior at home. Don't confront her. Don't go through her phone again. Act normal. I've been acting normal for months. Then keep doing it. The worst thing you can do right now is tip her off that you know something. She'll get careful, and careful makes my job harder. I promised to stay normal and left. The drive home took 20 minutes. I spent it thinking about normalcy, about the performance of marriage, about how I'd been playing a role without realizing it, and Sarah had been playing one too, and neither of us had noticed we were in different plays. That night, Sarah came home at 7, early for her recent standards. Surprised to see you, I said from the kitchen where I was making stir-fry. Thursdays are usually your late nights. The associate handling the merger is out sick, had to postpone some meetings. She poured herself wine. This smells good. Chicken and vegetables, nothing fancy. We ate dinner together. Sarah talked about work drama. Someone named Jennifer was angling for partner and making everyone miserable in the process. I made appropriate, sympathetic noises. I asked questions. I was attentive and present. Normal. After dinner, we watched a movie. Some thriller about a woman being stalked. Sarah fell asleep 20 minutes in, her head on my shoulder. I sat there, arm going numb, watching the protagonist realize she was in danger while everyone around her acted normal. The irony wasn't lost on me. Friday, Sarah worked from home. I went to school and taught my classes like nothing was wrong. Tommy Patterson asked if I was feeling better. I told him yes, the flu had passed, thanks for asking. During lunch, I sat in my classroom and ate a sandwich while researching divorce law, community property, asset division, alimony, fault versus no fault. The law wasn't on my side. We lived in an equitable distribution state, which meant assets got divided based on what was fair, not necessarily equal. But most of Sarah's money had been earned during the marriage. Her savings, her retirement account, her investment portfolio. Technically, I had a claim to some of it. But proving fault might get me more. Hence, Bill Kowalski and his surveillance operation. The weekend was strange. Saturday, Sarah suggested we go to the farmer's market. We walked around buying organic vegetables and artisanal bread, holding hands like a couple in a commercial for retirement planning. Sunday, we had brunch with her friend Jennifer, the one angling for partner. Jennifer's husband was there, a quiet accountant named Tom who looked as uncomfortable as I felt. The whole time, I kept thinking about Tuesday, about Sarah's pattern, about the man she was meeting at the Riverside Hotel while I graded papers and made dinner. I smiled and nodded and made small talk. I was getting very good at normal. Bill called me on Wednesday. "I've got something," he said. "Can you come by?" I told school I had a dentist appointment and left during my planning period. 30 minutes later, I was back in Bill's cluttered office. He had photographs spread across his desk like evidence at a crime scene, which, in a way, they were. Sarah, walking into the Riverside Hotel. Sarah, sitting in a restaurant booth with a man I didn't recognize. Sarah and the man, standing close in a parking garage. Sarah and the man, kissing. I picked up that last photo. It was grainy, taken from a distance with a long lens, but clear enough. Sarah's hand on the back of the man's neck, his hand on her waist, both of them pressed together like teenagers who couldn't wait to get to a bedroom. "His name is Eric Thornton," Bill said. "Investment banker at Mercer Financial. 38, divorced 2 years ago. No kids. Lives downtown in a condo on 5th Street. Makes approximately $400,000 a year." "How do you know all that?" "I'm good at my job." He pulled out more papers. He's been at Mercer for 12 years. Stanford MBA. Handles high net worth portfolios. Got divorced because he was working too much, according to the court filings. "Working too much," I repeated. "That's interesting." "It gets more interesting. Mercer Financial is a client of Henshaw and Associates, your wife's firm." I looked up from the photographs. "So they met through work?" "Looks like it. I pulled some records, public filings, case information. Eric's company has used Henshaw for legal work on 3 different deals in the past year. Your wife was listed as counsel on 2 of them. That's a conflict of interest. Ethically, probably, legally, depends on disclosure and firm policy. But yeah, it's messy." I set down the photo of them kissing. "What else?" "They meet every Tuesday and Thursday. Usually check into the Riverside around 3 p.m., leave around 6. Sometimes they grab dinner first at Marcello's on 8th Street. They've been doing this for at least 4 months, probably longer based on credit card patterns I could access." "Access legally?" Bill smiled. "Let's say I have sources, nothing that would get thrown out of court, if that's what you're worried about." I wasn't worried about court. I was worried about the cold thing in my chest getting colder, harder, more calculating. How much of this will hold up as evidence? All of it. The photos are clean, time-stamped, documented. I've got hotel records showing when they checked in, credit card receipts from the restaurants, timeline documentation. If you're planning to file for divorce on grounds of adultery, this is slam-dunk evidence. What if I'm not planning to file? Bill leaned back in his chair, studying me. "Then what are you planning?" "I don't know yet. Here's some free advice. Whatever you're thinking about doing, think carefully. Revenge feels good in the moment, but it usually costs more than you expect." "Who said anything about revenge?" "Nobody. But I've been doing this for 20 years. I know the look." I collected the photographs and documents, paid Bill his remaining balance, and left. The drive home felt longer than it should have. Traffic was light. The sun was shining. It was a beautiful October afternoon. Everything looked normal. I stopped at home long enough to hide the envelope of evidence in my car's trunk, under the spare tire. Then I drove to school and finished my afternoon classes. That evening, Sarah came home at 6:30. Normal time. She wasn't flushed or rumpled. She'd had time to compose herself after her afternoon at the Riverside Hotel. "Good day?" I asked. "Long, but productive." She set her briefcase down. "What's for dinner?" "I thought we could order Thai." "Perfect. I'm too tired to cook." We ordered from her favorite place. Pad Thai for her, green curry for me. We ate on the couch watching the news, wars and elections and economic reports, the world turning while our marriage died in silence. "David," Sarah said during a commercial break. "Yeah? Are we okay?" The question surprised me. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. You've seemed distant lately, distracted. Work stress, that's all." "You sure?" "Yeah. Why?" She shrugged. "Just checking. You know you can talk to me, right? About anything." The irony almost made me laugh. "Yeah, I know." She squeezed my hand, and I squeezed back, and we went back to watching the news like everything was fine. I spent the next week planning, not impulsively, not emotionally. I approached it like a research project, like I was preparing a lecture on military strategy or political maneuvering. First, I consulted a divorce attorney. Her name was Patricia Morrison, and she operated out of a 20th floor office downtown. I'd found her through careful online research. She had a reputation for being aggressive, thorough, and willing to fight for her clients. "Tell me what you want," she said, after I'd signed the confidentiality agreement. "I want to divorce my wife, and I want to make sure I'm protected." "Protected financially?" "Protected in every way possible." I showed her the photographs Bill had taken, the hotel records, the timeline. Patricia examined everything with the detached focus of a surgeon looking at an X-ray. "This is clear evidence of adultery," she said. "That helps in states where fault matters. How are your finances structured?" I explained. "Separate accounts except for one joint checking for household expenses. Sarah's substantial assets versus my modest savings." Patricia's expression told me what I already knew. "You're not going to get rich off this divorce. Your wife earned most of her money during the marriage, but 7 years isn't very long. And she can argue her income was from her own labor, not marital property. You'd be entitled to some percentage, but not half." "What if we factor in fault?" "Fault might get you a slightly better settlement. But honestly, most judges don't care about affairs when dividing assets. This isn't the 1950s. Unless you can prove the affair directly impacted marital finances, like if she was spending marital funds on her boyfriend, it probably won't matter much." "What about her reputation?" Patricia looked up sharply. "What about it?" "She's a lawyer. She had an affair with a client. That's an ethical violation. Potentially, if you can prove he was her client, and if you can prove the relationship constituted a conflict of interest, you might be able to file a bar complaint. But that's separate from the divorce. But it would hurt her career. It could, if proven. If the Bar Association decides it's worth pursuing. If her firm doesn't bury it." Patricia set down the photos. "Let me be very clear about something. If you want a clean divorce that protects your interests, I can do that. If you want to destroy your wife's career and reputation, I can probably help with that too. But you need to decide which battle you're fighting, because they're different strategies." "What if I want both?" "Then we need to be very, very careful. And you need to understand that revenge is expensive, not just financially, emotionally, legally. Sometimes the cost is higher than the satisfaction." I'd heard that before, from Bill, from my own common sense. But the cold thing in my chest didn't care about cost. "I want both," I said. Patricia studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Okay, then here's what we do." She laid out a strategy. Document everything. Keep copies of all evidence in multiple locations. Don't move out of the apartment. It could hurt my claim to property. Don't confront Sarah yet. Build an airtight case first. And most importantly, look into Eric Thornton's professional situation. If there was overlap between his work and Sarah's, that was leverage. I paid Patricia a retainer and left with a folder full of documents to sign. The next step was researching Eric Thornton's career. This took more time. I couldn't just call his office and ask questions. I had to piece it together from public sources: LinkedIn profiles, corporate filings, news articles about deals his firm had handled. What I found was interesting. Eric Thornton specialized in investment management for mid-size companies. Several of those companies were also clients of Henshaw and Associates. I cross-referenced names from his LinkedIn page with Sarah's case files, the ones I'd photographed from her laptop weeks ago. 3 matches. 3 companies where Eric managed investments and Sarah provided legal counsel. That was more than coincidence. That was a pattern. And patterns meant vulnerability. I spent hours digging deeper. Mercer Financial had policies about client relationships and conflicts of interest. They'd been involved in a regulatory investigation 2 years ago. Nothing major, but enough to make them sensitive about compliance issues. If someone were to tip off Mercer's compliance department about a potential conflict of interest between one of their vice presidents and a lawyer at a firm they worked with, that would trigger an investigation. And investigations had consequences. I drafted an anonymous email. Careful, factual, no accusations, just concerns that management should be aware of. I included the names of the 3 companies, the dates when deals had been filed, and a suggestion that perhaps the firm should review any potential conflicts of interest between Eric Thornton and Sarah Harmon at Henshaw and Associates. I didn't send it yet, but I had it ready. Meanwhile, I continued being the perfect husband. I came home on time. I made dinner. I asked about Sarah's day. I was attentive and affectionate in all the ways I'd let slip over the past year. And I watched Sarah grow increasingly uncomfortable with my sudden attention. "You're being really nice," she said one evening while we did dishes together. "Is that bad?" "No, just different." "What's going on?" "Nothing. I just realized I've been taking you for granted lately. I want to do better." She didn't look convinced, but she didn't push. Maybe she was too guilty to interrogate my motives. Maybe she was worried I'd start asking questions if she pushed back. Either way, she accepted it, and I kept planning. I sent the anonymous email to Mercer Financial's compliance department on a Monday morning, used a temporary email address, routed through a VPN, no way to trace it back to me. The email was professional, concerned, and factual, just someone worried about potential conflicts of interest that management should review. Then I waited. Tuesday came. Sarah left for work at her usual time. I knew she'd be meeting Eric that afternoon at the Riverside Hotel. Same pattern she'd been following for months. I wondered if today would be different. If Eric would be stressed about something at work he couldn't quite explain. Wednesday, I got my answer. Sarah came home agitated, not angry exactly, more nervous. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Fine. Just work drama." "Want to talk about it?" "Not really." She poured herself a large glass of wine. "Some compliance thing at one of our client firms. Probably nothing, but it's creating extra work." "Which client?" "Mercer Financial. You wouldn't know them." I made a sympathetic noise and went back to chopping vegetables for dinner. Inside, I was smiling. The next few days, Sarah's stress increased. More wine with dinner, more distracted conversations. She started working later again, but I noticed she wasn't mentioning Tuesday and Thursday late nights specifically anymore. The pattern was disrupted. Good. I used the time to continue my own research. I'd been thinking about Sarah's social circle. The people we knew, the colleagues she worked with, the friends we shared. Most of them were from her world, her firm, her income bracket. People who saw me as Sarah's husband, not as a person in my own right. But I'd been having lunch with some of them lately, coffee meetings, casual conversations where I'd express concern about Sarah's stress levels, her long hours, her distracted behavior. "Is she okay?" I asked Jennifer during one of these conversations. We'd met for coffee on a Saturday while Sarah was allegedly at the gym. "She seems fine to me. Why?" "I don't know. She's just been really stressed lately, working late constantly. I'm worried she's burning out. The Cassidy merger has been intense. We're all feeling it. She specifically mentions working late every Tuesday and Thursday. Is that normal for this case? Jennifer frowned slightly. Tuesday and Thursday? That's odd. Most of our merger meetings are Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Huh, maybe she's doing research or something. Maybe. But Jennifer looked troubled. I had similar conversations with other people in Sarah's orbit. Never accusing. Just concerned. Just asking questions that didn't quite add up. The whispers started slowly. I could feel the social landscape shifting. People paying more attention to Sarah's schedule, to her behavior, to the small inconsistencies that I kept highlighting without ever directly accusing her of anything. Meanwhile, at Mercer Financial, Eric Thornton was having a bad month. I knew this because I'd started following his LinkedIn activity. He'd always been active on social media. Posts about market trends, congratulations to colleagues, articles about investment strategies. But his posts had become less frequent, more defensive. He shared an article about workplace investigations and due process. He posted something about the importance of professional ethics. The man was rattled. I still hadn't sent anything to the Bar Association about Sarah. That would be the nuclear option, and I wasn't ready to detonate it yet. I was enjoying the slow burn too much. The way Sarah kept checking her phone anxiously. The way she'd started questioning my sudden attentiveness, like she couldn't figure out if I knew something or if she was just paranoid. Let her wonder. Let her stress. Let her feel a fraction of what I'd felt when I found that text message. One evening in early November, Sarah's friend Jennifer came over for dinner. I made my famous lasagna, the one recipe I actually knew how to do well. We drank wine and talked about nothing important. After dinner, Jennifer helped me with dishes, while Sarah took a work call in the other room. "Can I ask you something?" Jennifer said quietly. "Sure. Are you and Sarah okay? And I mean really okay, not just social media okay." I looked at her carefully. Jennifer was sharp, a good lawyer and a better observer of human behavior. "Why do you ask?" "She's been off lately, jumpy, and you've been, I don't know, different, more present. It's like you're both performing your marriage instead of living it." "That's perceptive." "So something is wrong." "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." Jennifer dried a plate. "If you need someone to talk to, I'm here, off the record, friend to friend." "Thanks. I appreciate it." She didn't push further, but I knew the message had been delivered. Jennifer suspected something. She'd be watching more carefully now, and if she was watching, others would be too. The social pressure was building, the professional pressure was building, and Sarah was caught in the middle, not quite understanding why everything was falling apart, but feeling it happen nonetheless. I was dismantling her life piece by piece, and she had no idea I was the one holding the hammer. By mid-November, Eric Thornton's job situation had deteriorated significantly. I knew this because Sarah came home one evening and immediately poured herself a vodka martini. Not wine. Vodka. That was new. "Rough day?" I asked from the couch where I'd been grading papers. You could say that. "Want to talk about it?" "Not really." She drank half the martini in one gulp. "Just client drama." "Mercer Financial again?" She looked at me sharply. "Why do you say that?" "You mentioned them last week. The compliance issue." "Right. Yeah." She finished the martini and poured another. "One of their VPs is under investigation. It's creating problems for several of our cases." "That's frustrating." "It's more than frustrating. It's affecting my billable hours, my cases, everything, and I can't even—" She stopped herself. "Can't even what?" "Nothing. Forget it." But I knew what she'd almost said. She couldn't even talk to Eric about it. Couldn't comfort him or get information or coordinate their stories. The affair that had seemed so exciting and risk-free was now a liability they both had to hide. I went back to my grading like I didn't care. That weekend, I took another step. I'd been thinking about the Bar Association complaint. Patricia had advised caution. It was a nuclear option that could backfire if not handled correctly. But I'd been gathering more evidence, more documentation of the overlap between Eric's clients and Sarah's cases, more proof of the timing. I didn't file a formal complaint. Instead, I sent another anonymous email, this time to the Ethics Committee at Henshaw and Associates. The email was brief, just a concerned party noting that there appeared to be an undisclosed personal relationship between one of their attorneys and a client representative, and perhaps management should review whether proper conflict of interest disclosures had been made. I included enough details that they couldn't ignore it, but not so many that it looked like a personal vendetta. Again, I waited. This time, Sarah's reaction was immediate. She came home on Monday evening looking pale, shaken. She didn't pour a drink. She just sat on the couch, staring at nothing. "Sarah," I said, "what's wrong?" "The firm's ethics committee wants to meet with me tomorrow." "About what?" "Some bullshit anonymous complaint about conflict of interest protocols." She looked at me. "Someone sent an email suggesting I haven't been properly disclosing relationships with client representatives." "That's ridiculous. You're always careful about that stuff." "I know, it's probably nothing, just someone being petty or trying to cause problems." But her hands were shaking. I sat beside her and put my arm around her shoulders. Comforting, supportive, the perfect, concerned husband. "It'll be fine," I said. "You haven't done anything wrong, right?" "Right," she said. But she wouldn't meet my eyes. The ethics committee meeting happened Tuesday. Sarah left early, came home late. She looked exhausted. "How did it go?" I asked. "Fine. They're just doing their due diligence, making sure all the proper disclosures were filed, that sort of thing." "And were they?" "Of course." But her voice lacked conviction. "So there's nothing to worry about?" "No. Nothing." We both knew she was lying. That night, I heard her on the phone in the bedroom. The walls in our apartment were thin enough that I could hear her voice from the living room, even though I couldn't make out words. She sounded upset, arguing with someone. Eric, probably. Their perfect affair was turning into a professional nightmare, and neither of them knew how to handle it. I sat on the couch, drinking tea, listening to my wife's muffled voice through the wall, and I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, just cold calculation about the next move. The holidays were approaching. Thanksgiving was 2 weeks away. Sarah's parents had invited us to their place in Connecticut. Under normal circumstances, I'd have been dreading it. Her father had never really approved of me, and spending 4 days pretending to care about his golf game was exhausting. But this year, I was looking forward to it, because stressed people made mistakes, and Sarah was very, very stressed. Thanksgiving with Sarah's parents was exactly as uncomfortable as I'd hoped. Her father, Richard, was a retired investment banker who'd made enough money to live in a Connecticut mansion and judge everyone who hadn't done the same. Her mother, Patricia, was the kind of woman who smiled constantly while making cutting remarks about everything from your clothes to your career choices. They'd never understood why Sarah married a high school teacher. "Still teaching history?" Richard asked over pre-dinner drinks. We were in his study, surrounded by leather-bound books he'd probably never read. "Still teaching," I confirmed. "Ever think about moving into administration? More money in that?" "I like the classroom." His tone suggested this was evidence of limited ambition. "And Sarah? How's the partnership track going?" Sarah, sitting beside me on the leather couch, tensed slightly. "It's going well." "Well, that's all? You should be making partner by now. You're what, 34? "These things take time, Dad." "Time." Richard swirled his scotch. "In my day, you either moved up or moved out. Firms don't reward patience." I watched Sarah's jaw tighten. She was already stressed about the ethics investigation, already worried about Eric's situation at Mercer, already trying to maintain the facade of a perfect marriage while conducting an affair that was falling apart. Her father's criticism was just more weight on an already cracking foundation. "Sarah's been handling some major cases," I said, playing the supportive husband. "The Cassidy merger alone is worth millions in billings." Richard looked at me like I'd said something quaint. "Billings don't matter if you're not a partner. She's making money for other people." "Dad, can we not do this right now?" Sarah asked. "I'm just saying, you're not getting any younger. If you want to make partner, you need to be more aggressive." Patricia floated into the study then, saving us from more career advice. "Dinner's ready. Come along, everyone." The meal was prime rib and tension. Sarah barely ate. Her mother noticed. "Are you feeling well, dear? You look tired." "I'm fine. Just work stress." "You should take vitamins, and maybe cut back on your hours. All that stress isn't good for your complexion." I almost laughed. Sarah's complexion was the least of her problems. After dinner, while Sarah and her mother cleaned up, Patricia insisted on traditional gender roles despite having a full-time housekeeper. Richard cornered me in the living room. "Is everything okay with you two?" he asked bluntly. "Of course. Why?" "Sarah seems off, distracted, and you seem, I don't know, different." "Different how?" "More confident, like you're not intimidated by all this anymore." He gestured vaguely at the mansion, the wealth, the life I'd never quite fit into. "Maybe I've just gotten comfortable." "Maybe." Richard studied me with the same sharp eyes Sarah had inherited. "Or maybe something else is going on. If there's a problem, I'd like to know about it. Sarah's my daughter. I look out for her interests." "There's no problem. I promise." He didn't look convinced, but he let it drop. That night, Sarah and I shared the guest room, the one with the 4-poster bed and decorator pillows that were too fancy to actually use. She got ready for bed in silence, her movements mechanical. "Your dad thinks something's wrong," I said as we settled under the expensive sheets. "My dad always thinks something's wrong. It's his default setting. He's worried about you. He's worried about my career. That's different from being worried about me." I rolled onto my side to face her. "Are you okay? Really?" She looked at me then, and for a moment I saw something raw in her expression. Fear, maybe, or guilt, or exhaustion from carrying secrets that were getting heavier by the day. "I don't know," she said quietly. "I feel like everything's falling apart, and I don't know how to stop it." "What do you mean?" "Work is a nightmare. That ethics investigation is hanging over me. One of my major clients is imploding. I can't sleep, I can't focus. I feel like I'm drowning." I reached out and took her hand. "You're not drowning. You're just stressed. It'll pass." "Will it?" "Of course. You're Sarah Harmon. You're brilliant and tough, and you always figure things out." She squeezed my hand. "Thank you. I needed to hear that. Anytime." We lay there in the darkness, holding hands like we had 7 years ago when we first got married, before the success and the money and the affairs, when we'd been young and stupid and in love. Part of me wanted to tell her I knew everything, that I'd hired a private investigator and seen the photographs, that I'd been systematically destroying her affair partner's career and undermining her professional reputation, that everything falling apart wasn't random. It was me, piece by piece, dismantling the life she'd built on lies. But I didn't say any of that. I just squeezed her hand back and listened to her breathing slow into sleep. Because the cruelest thing I could do was let her think she could trust me while I finished destroying everything she'd built. The ethics investigation at Henshaw & Associates intensified in December. I knew because Sarah started coming home later and later. Not from the Riverside Hotel. Those Tuesday and Thursday meetings had stopped entirely. Instead, she was actually working, preparing responses to the ethics committee, documenting her case files, trying to prove she'd followed proper protocols. The problem was, she hadn't followed proper protocols. She'd been too confident in her ability to compartmentalize, too sure that no one would notice the overlap between her cases and Eric's clients. She'd been sloppy in exactly the way Bill Kowalski said everyone was. "They're making me turn over all my files," she told me one evening while we ate takeout Chinese food. "Every case involving Mercer Financial or their clients for the past 2 years. Is that normal? For a thorough ethics review? Yeah, but it's humiliating. Like they don't trust me. I'm sure it's just procedure. It doesn't feel like procedure. It feels like they're building a case." She wasn't wrong. I'd made sure they had plenty of breadcrumbs to follow. Meanwhile, Eric Thornton's situation had gone from bad to worse. According to the gossip Sarah reluctantly shared, Mercer Financial's investigation had found irregularities in how he'd handled several client accounts. Nothing illegal, but enough to violate company policy. He'd been demoted from vice president to senior investment analyst, a significant step down in title and salary. "It's ruining him," Sarah said one night after too much wine. "His ex-wife is using the demotion to renegotiate their divorce settlement. He might lose his condo." "That's rough," I said, not meaning it. "It's destroying him. And I can't even—" She trailed off. "Can't even what?" "Nothing. Just work drama." But I knew what she meant. She couldn't comfort him, couldn't be seen with him. Their relationship, whatever it had been, was now a liability neither of them could afford. I watched it happen with detached interest, like observing an experiment. Remove the conditions that allowed the affair to flourish: secrecy, excitement, the thrill of getting away with something, and what remained? Just two people who'd made bad choices and were now paying for them separately. Christmas approached. Sarah's firm was hosting their annual holiday party at the Carlisle Hotel, a big fancy affair with clients and partners and everyone important. "You're coming, right?" Sarah asked while we decorated our apartment's small tree. She'd bought it at a lot near our building, real pine, expensive, the kind that smelled like childhood memories I didn't have. "To the party?" "Yes. It's important." "Why this year specifically?" She hung an ornament carefully. "Because people are watching me, judging me. I need to look stable, professional, like I have my life together." "And having your husband there helps with that?" "Yes." She turned to face me. "I know we've been going through a rough patch. I know I haven't been the best wife lately, but I need you to do this for me. Please." I could have said no. Could have forced her to face her colleagues alone while her career crumbled around her. But that wasn't the plan. The plan was to be there, to be visible, to be the devoted husband who'd done nothing wrong while everyone wondered what was really happening. "Of course I'll come," I said. "We're a team." She hugged me then, sudden and tight. "Thank you. I know I don't deserve you." She had no idea how true that was. The week before the party, I made another move. I'd been sitting on evidence about Eric Thornton's investment practices for weeks. Small things, aggressive strategies that technically didn't violate regulations but pushed ethical boundaries. Trades made just before major client announcements that could suggest insider information. Nothing I could prove, but enough to raise questions. I packaged it carefully, screenshots of trades, timelines, public information about client deals that Eric had seemed to anticipate, and sent it anonymously to a financial journalist I'd been researching. Someone who specialized in investment ethics and had a history of investigating Wall Street improprieties. The article came out 3 days before the holiday party. It was devastating. The journalist didn't name Eric Thornton directly. Too much legal liability. But he detailed patterns at a mid-size investment firm that suggested possible ethical violations. Anyone in the industry would recognize Mercer Financial from the description. And anyone at Mercer would know exactly who the article was about. Sarah came home the day the article published, looking shell-shocked. "Did you see this?" She showed me her phone, The article pulled up on a financial news site. I read it carefully, like I was seeing it for the first time. Wow, that's damning. It's about Mercer Financial, about Eric, she caught herself, about one of their VPs. The one you mentioned? The one under investigation? Yes. That's terrible. Will it affect your cases? I don't know. Probably. God, this is such a mess. She poured herself wine, even though it was only 3 in the afternoon. Everything's falling apart. I put my arm around her. It'll be okay. None of this is your fault. Isn't it? How could it be? You're just the lawyer. You didn't do anything wrong. She leaned against me, and I felt her shaking. Crying, maybe, or just trembling from stress. I don't know if I can do this anymore, she whispered. Do what? Any of it. The job, the pressure, pretending everything's fine when it's not. You don't have to pretend with me. She pulled away and looked at me, mascara smudged under her eyes. Don't I? What does that mean? Nothing. Forget it. She wiped her face. I need to take a shower. She left me standing in the living room, holding her wine glass, wondering if she suspected something. If she'd started to realize that all these disasters weren't random coincidence but carefully orchestrated destruction. But she couldn't know. I'd been too careful, too smart, too patient. The holiday party was in 2 days, and I was ready for the final act. The Carlisle Hotel ballroom glittered with Christmas decorations and forced cheer. I wore my good suit, navy blue, fitted, the one I'd bought specifically for this occasion. Sarah wore a black dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary. She looked beautiful and terrified. We arrived together, her hand tight on my arm. Remember, she whispered as we walked in, smile, be charming, act like everything's fine. Everything is fine, I said, meaning it in ways she couldn't understand. The party was exactly what I'd expected. Open bar, catered food, networks of people pretending to enjoy each other's company while calculating professional advantage. Sarah was immediately absorbed into a group of partners. I got a bourbon and circulated, making small talk with people whose names I'd memorized specifically for tonight. David, right? Mark Brennan, one of Sarah's colleagues, appeared at my elbow. Good to see you. You too. How's the Cassidy merger going? Complicated, but we're getting there. He lowered his voice. How's Sarah doing? She seems stressed. The ethics investigation has been hard on her. I heard about that. Such bullshit. Sarah's one of the most ethical attorneys I know. I think so too, but you know how these things go. Someone files a complaint, the firm has to investigate. Do you know who filed it? No idea. Anonymous, apparently. Mark shook his head. Cowardly way to do it. If you have a problem with someone, you should confront them directly. I sipped my bourbon and didn't respond. An hour into the party, I saw him. Eric Thornton stood near the windows, looking diminished. He'd lost weight. His suit hung slightly loose, like he'd bought it when things were better. He nursed a drink and avoided eye contact with everyone around him. I watched him for a while. Watched him check his phone compulsively. Watched him scan the room, looking for Sarah, probably, wanting to talk to her but knowing he couldn't. Not here, not with everyone watching. Around 8 p.m. I saw them exchange glances across the room. Brief, desperate. Sarah's expression said, "We need to talk." Eric said, "I know, but we can't." I finished my bourbon and got another. Jennifer appeared beside me, elegant in a dark green dress. "You're being very observant tonight. Just people watching." "You're watching 2 people specifically. Want to tell me why?" I looked at her carefully. Jennifer was Sarah's friend, but she was also smart and observant, and I'd been planting seeds with her for weeks. "Sarah's been under a lot of stress," I said neutrally, "and Eric Thornton being here isn't helping." "Is that his name? I don't think we've met." "Don't play dumb, David. I've been watching too. I've seen how they look at each other, how Sarah's been falling apart as his career imploded. How you've been playing the supportive husband while clearly knowing something. She paused. What's your endgame here? I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. You're not the passive teacher everyone thinks you are. You've been moving pieces on a board that most people can't even see. So I'm asking, what's your endgame? I met her eyes. Justice. Justice or revenge. What's the difference? Jennifer studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Fair enough. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Whatever happened, I'm sorry. Thank you. She walked away, leaving me alone with my bourbon and my plans. Around 9 p.m., Sarah excused herself to the restroom. 5 minutes later, Eric headed in the same direction. I waited 3 minutes, then I followed. I found them in a small alcove off the main corridor. Not touching, just standing close, talking in urgent whispers. Can't keep doing this, Eric was saying. They're investigating everything. If they find out about us, they won't. Just stay calm. Easy for you to say. You're not the one who lost everything. My job, my reputation, my apartment. Eric, I know I'm sorry, but we have to be smart about this. Smart? Where was smart 6 months ago? Where was smart when we started this? Don't do this, not here. Then where? When? You won't return my calls, you won't meet me. I'm losing everything and you're just... Hello, I said, stepping into view. They jumped apart like I'd fired a gun. Sarah's face went white. Eric's went red, then pale. David, Sarah said, her voice barely steady. I was just talking to Eric Thornton. Yes, I can see that. I looked at him directly for the first time. He was shorter than I'd expected, less impressive. Just a man who'd made stupid choices and was now paying for them. I should get back to the party, Eric said, not meeting my eyes. Don't leave on my account. I'm sure you two have a lot to discuss. David, this isn't what it looks like, Sarah said. I pulled out my phone and brought up one of Bill's photographs. Sarah and Eric kissing in a parking garage. Really? What does it look like? The color drained from Eric's face. Sarah grabbed for my phone, but I pulled it away. How long have you had those? She whispered. Long enough. Since October, actually. Bill Kowalski does very thorough work. Who? The private investigator I hired. He's been following you both for months. Hotels, restaurants, parking garages. Very comprehensive documentation. Eric found his voice. You've been sabotaging my career. Have I? I'm just a high school teacher. What would I know about financial compliance or ethics investigations? The anonymous tips, the journalist, that was all you. I have no idea what you're talking about, though I have to say your investment practices were surprisingly easy to research. Public records are amazing, aren't they? Eric stepped toward me, hands clenched. You destroyed my life. No, Eric. You did that yourself when you decided to sleep with my wife. I just made sure everyone knew about it. Sarah grabbed Eric's arm. Don't. He's baiting you. He's ruined everything. And whose fault is that? I asked calmly. Mine, for discovering your affair? Or yours, for having one? People were starting to notice the commotion. A few partygoers drifted closer, sensing drama. Mark Brennan stood about 10 feet away, watching. So did Jennifer, 2 senior partners from Sarah's firm, the managing director of Mercer Financial. Perfect audience. You know what the funny thing is? I said, loud enough for them to hear. I would have forgiven you, Sarah, if you'd just told me, if you'd been honest. But you lied, for months, while I made you dinner and asked about your day and loved you. You looked me in the eye and lied. David, please, Sarah said quietly. Let's go somewhere private. Why? So you can lie to me in private instead of public? No thanks, I'm done with your lies. This is harassment, Eric said. I could sue you. For what? Telling the truth? Good luck with that, though I suppose you could use the distraction. How's the job search going, by the way? I hear Mercer's planning to let you go entirely after the holidays. Eric lunged at me then. Not effectively. He was too stressed and drunk and desperate. I stepped aside easily. Mark Brennan caught Eric's arm before he could try again. "That's enough," Mark said firmly. "Eric, you need to leave." "This is assault," Eric sputtered. "You all saw—" "We saw you attempt to assault him," Jennifer said coldly. "After he revealed you've been having an affair with one of our attorneys while representing conflicting clients. I'd leave quietly if I were you." Eric looked around at the circle of faces watching him. All judgment, no sympathy. His career was over. His reputation was destroyed. And everyone knew it. He turned and walked away fast, disappearing into the crowd. The audience dispersed slowly, whispering. The gossip would spread through the party within minutes. By tomorrow, everyone in Sarah's professional world would know about the affair. Sarah stood frozen, her face a mask of shock and humiliation. "We're leaving," she said quietly. "Actually, I think I'll stay. I'm enjoying the party." I raised my glass to Mark. "Good to see you, Mark. We should have that lunch we keep talking about." Sarah grabbed my arm hard enough to hurt. "David, now." "No." "Excuse me?" I said no. "You go ahead. I'll get a cab home later." "You're humiliating me." "No, Sarah. You humiliated yourself. I'm just making sure everyone sees it clearly." She stared at me with something like hatred, or maybe respect. It was hard to tell. Then she turned and walked away, head high, dignity somehow intact despite everything. I watched her go and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, just empty. Jennifer appeared at my elbow. "You got what you wanted." "Did I?" "Didn't you? Her career is probably over. His definitely is. Their affair is exposed. Everyone knows. Isn't that justice?" I thought it would feel better. It never does. Revenge is like that. You think it'll fill the hole inside you, but it just makes it bigger. She paused. "What happens now?" "Now? Now I file for divorce. And she gives me what I want. Or I make things even worse." "You can make things worse than this?" "I have copies of everything, Jennifer. Every email, every text, every piece of evidence showing her affair coincided with cases involving Eric's clients. I haven't filed a bar complaint yet, but I could." "That's blackmail." "No, that's leverage. There's a difference." Jennifer shook her head. "You're not who I thought you were. Neither is Sarah. Funny how that works." She walked away, leaving me alone in the glittering ballroom surrounded by people who were no longer looking at me like the quiet teacher married to the successful lawyer. They were looking at me like someone who'd just burned down his own life to prove a point. And maybe they were right. The drive home was silent. I took a cab around midnight, after the party ended. Sarah was already in bed when I arrived, or pretending to be. I didn't check. Just went to the bathroom, brushed my teeth, and lay down on the couch. I couldn't sleep next to her anymore. Morning came gray and cold, December in the city, everything covered in dirty snow and exhaust. Sarah emerged from the bedroom around 8. She'd already showered and dressed in jeans and a sweater, casual clothes I rarely saw her wear. Her face was puffy from crying. "We need to talk," she said. "Okay. You've been planning this. The investigation, the evidence last night, all of it. You've been systematically destroying my life." "Yes." She flinched at my honesty. "Why?" "Because you destroyed mine first. By having an affair? That's what this is about? You've ruined my career, humiliated me publicly, destroyed Eric's life, all because I made a mistake?" "A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. An affair lasting months isn't a mistake. It's a choice, a series of choices. Every time you lied to me, every time you came home from that hotel, every time you looked me in the eye and pretended everything was fine, those were choices. So your choice was to destroy everything we built?" "We didn't build anything, Sarah. You built a career. I was just scenery in your life, the supportive husband who made dinner and didn't ask questions while your client." She slapped me then, hard enough that my cheek burned. I didn't react, just looked at her calmly. Feel better? Yes, no. I don't know. She sat down heavily on the couch. What do you want? I want a divorce. Obviously. What else? $200,000. Paid within 60 days of the divorce being finalized. You keep everything else. This apartment, your retirement accounts, your investment portfolio. I just want enough money to start over. That's blackmail. No, that's a settlement offer. Blackmail would be me threatening to file a bar complaint if you don't agree, which I'm not doing. Yet. Your choice, Sarah. You can fight me, spend hundreds of thousands on lawyers, drag this through courts while I systematically destroy what's left of your reputation. Or you can pay me $200,000 and we both move on. I could fight you. The evidence wouldn't hold up in divorce court. Affairs don't matter as much as you think they do. You're right. But they matter to the Bar Association. They matter to your firm's ethics committee. They matter to all those clients who trust you to represent their interests while you're sleeping with people who manage their money. I paused. How much is your career worth, Sarah? Is it worth more than $200,000? She stared at me with pure hatred. I don't even know you anymore. Funny. I was thinking the same thing about you, 6 months ago, actually, when I found that first text message. You've been planning this for 6 months? I've been gathering evidence for 6 months. The planning took longer. I'm very patient when I need to be. Sarah stood up, grabbed her coat. I need to get out of here. Where are you going? I don't know. Away from you. Anywhere away from you. She left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I sat in the silent apartment and waited for something to happen, for regret to hit, for satisfaction, for anything. Nothing came. Just the same hollow emptiness I'd been carrying for months. My phone buzzed. Patricia Morrison, my attorney. I'm guessing last night went according to plan, she said when I answered. More or less. I've already gotten calls from 2 partners at Henshaw. They want to know if you're planning to file any additional complaints or lawsuits. Not if Sarah agrees to my terms. She'll agree. She doesn't have a choice. Her firm is probably already discussing whether to let her go. The optics are terrible. Affair with a client representative, undisclosed conflicts of interest, public scandal. Even if she didn't technically violate ethics rules, she's a liability now. Good. Is it? You sound miserable. I am miserable, but at least I'm not powerless anymore. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Revenge doesn't fix anything, David. You know that, right? Everyone keeps telling me that, but nobody ever suggests what else I should have done. Therapy, counseling, a clean divorce, moving on. Moving on, like it's that simple. Like I could just accept that my wife cheated on me and start fresh. It is that simple. It's just not easy. Well, I chose the hard way. Too late to go back now. No, it's not. You could still... I have to go. Thanks for calling. I hung up and sat there staring at my phone. She was right. They were all right. Revenge hadn't fixed anything. I'd spent 6 months carefully dismantling Sarah's life, and all I had to show for it was an empty apartment and a hollow chest. But I'd also proven something. That I wasn't the passive, forgettable husband Sarah thought I was. That I could be dangerous when pushed. That actions had consequences. Maybe that was worth the cost. Or maybe I was just lying to myself again. Sarah's attorney called Patricia on Monday. They were willing to settle. $200,000 paid within 60 days. Clean split. I kept my retirement account and savings. She kept everything else. She folded fast, Patricia said when she called to tell me. Her firm must have put pressure on her. Are they letting her go? Unclear. But she's on administrative leave while they complete their ethics review. Between you and me, that's usually a precursor to termination. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt tired. The divorce papers were drawn up quickly. We met once to sign them, in Patricia's office, with both our attorneys present. Sarah looked thinner, older. She'd stopped wearing makeup, Or maybe she just didn't care anymore. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she wasn't sleeping. I probably looked the same. We didn't speak until after the papers were signed and notarized. "I hope you're happy," Sarah said as she wrote me a check for $200,000. "I'm not." "Good. At least we're both miserable." "Did you love him?" The question surprised us both. I hadn't planned to ask it. Sarah folded the check carefully. "I don't know. Maybe. Does it matter?" "It matters to me." "Why?" "Because if you loved him, at least it meant something. If you didn't, then you destroyed our marriage for nothing." She handed me the check. "I thought I did. Love him, I mean. He was exciting and successful and paid attention to me in a way you hadn't in years. I was here. I was always here. You were here physically, but emotionally. You checked out of our marriage long before I had the affair. So this is my fault? No, it's both our faults. We stopped being partners and started being roommates. I just dealt with it in a worse way than you did. By sleeping with someone else." "By sleeping with someone else," she agreed. "And you dealt with it by destroying my life." "Yes." "So we're even?" "I don't know if that's how it works." Sarah stood, gathering her things. "Eric moved to Austin, by the way. Got a job at some regional investment firm making half what he used to. His ex-wife took his condo in the settlement." "I know." "Of course you do. You probably arranged that too." "I didn't have to. I just documented what he'd already done. The consequences were his own making." "Keep telling yourself that." She paused at the door. "For what it's worth, I am sorry. For the affair, for lying, for everything. I was selfish and stupid, and I hurt you badly. You didn't deserve that." "Thank you." "But you didn't deserve to become this person either, this cold, calculating version of yourself. So I'm also sorry that I turned you into someone you probably hate." She left before I could respond. Patricia walked me to the elevator. "How do you feel?" "Empty." "That's normal. I don't think I'm grieving the marriage. I think I'm grieving who I used to be. The person who could trust people? The person who didn't automatically assume the worst, who didn't see everything as a potential battlefield. That person might come back, with time. Maybe. But I didn't believe it.